Welcome. So today we've got a treat. Karishma's going to be presenting for you. She's a member, an experienced mediator, and accredited mind mentor, which is quite intriguing. She's going to be sharing with us some insights on self-care as mediators. So I will hand over to you, Karishma.
Thanks, Jo. Welcome, everybody, this evening. I know everyone's had a busy day, and I will walk through this. I like to be a little bit of sharing information, asking questions. So if you can participate, that will be absolutely amazing. You get a lot more out of it when you're having a conversation rather than just doing a presentation, is my belief. A little bit about myself. I am an experienced mediator and a rehabilitation consultant. Currently work as a rehab case manager with Linfox, and I'm currently in Melbourne, but moving to Adelaide in the next couple of weeks, and will be looking for a job in Adelaide because I don't have one over there. What I want to talk about today is really about self-care within the mediation world. As mediators, we are stuck in the middle of a lot of things. We seem to be taking pressure from both sides because we are trying to get everyone on the same page and get some things happening, getting a good outcome, etc. And what often happens is we put ourselves last. And I think it's really important to remember we cannot keep doing our job if we don't look after ourselves. And a job as a mediator is the most important job that we can have in life. And mediation is not just in the workplace. There's a lot of mediation that we do formally, informally, in our workplace, and in our personal life too. Once a mediator, always a mediator. So what I want to do is go through what my journey carved out for today is going to be. So what we are going to do is actually explore some real world strategies for mediation and building up our resilience. How do we do it? Because the world is going bang, 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 and we sometimes don't even take the time to stop and breathe. And sometimes that's okay, but a lot of times it's not. And if we don't hit the pause button, we're going to get burnt out. And I don't think that's going to help you, any of your clients, any of your customers, or your family members. And hence, what I want to do is also look at how do we recognize those signs of burnout? Because everybody talks about burnout. But what is burnout? What does it mean? Can you just see the black of the burning thing on the outside? That's not true. And burnout is so different for everybody. So we're going to start looking at some of the flags that we can see for ourselves. And eventually what I want to do is I want us to have some practical tools and tips for self-care. Now, mind you, this is going to be different for each of us individually. But what I do have at the end of this session is I have a quick cheat sheet that I have drafted, and I will email it to everybody via Joanne so that you can have a look at it, and that could be your cheat sheet, or you can draft something different for yourself based on that. I feel like today's journey is something that's going to begin today, but it's going to be on a continuum. And it's going to be something you're going to have to reflect on. You have to come back to every single time, because otherwise you're going to forget, because that's what happens in life. We talk a lot about mindfulness. We talk a lot about all of these things, but have you ever sat down and thought about what does that mean? So let's get straight into it. So the first thing I want you to write down and put it in the chat screen, or put your hand up and say something, but what really is the biggest thing that drains you out in a mediation session? I've put a few points over there. Sometimes it's really those emotions. For me, it's trying to balance the emotions of both the parties, and especially when there is a power imbalance. And often in the rehab world, you will find a power imbalance because one's an employer and one's an employee. And there is that fear of losing your job, or the fear of losing face, or whatever it might be. Conflict is another common one. You're right in the middle of it and you're facing everything. Another one I find is paperwork. There's heaps and heaps of paperwork, especially in Melbourne. You have your part A, then you have your part B, and then you have your agreement, and then you have to go back and look at it. So what's something that drains you out during a mediation? It could be something that's going on in your personal life. I'd love if you can put something in there or just say it. And trust me, if you don't, I'll start taking names. So you might as well start. All right, let's go around the team since no one is starting. First on my screen is Barbara. Being on the whole time, Daniel, absolutely agree with you. You just can't pause. You just have to be alert. Frustration with people not seeming to be thinking about them. 100%. People are only thinking about what the outcome should be. And long periods of time, absolutely. I've had a mediation session which went on for an hour and a half. And by the end of it, I was so drained because I was fully on and fully trying to manage that situation. Barbara, anything from you? Usha?
Come on, guys, participation's good.
Power imbalance, 100%. We don't know what the power imbalance is. And sometimes it's not necessarily the employer and the employee. Sometimes it's the other way around because the employee could be the one who yells and screams, etc. Continuously not sure. Oh, absolutely. Because you can't change your hat. You have emotions going on. And some of the things happening in that session can hit a nerve, can hit a chord for you. Joe, anything from you? And while you're talking about emotions, it's that up and down because sometimes that people are flat in there and you're trying to pull things out and it's like pulling teeth and it's like, come on, guys, just say something. Or sometimes they're just saying too much and you're trying to hit the pause button so that you can pull the threads together. Absolutely. There's so much going on in the background. Some people here do full-day mediations, 100%. And by the end of the day, the last mediation, you don't know Arthur from Martha. You really are trying to keep it on, but it's hard. It is difficult. And yet we continue and we do a very, very important job. And what's the hidden cost behind it? You're actually holding the space for others. What you need to remember is you can't let it get absorbed into you because sometimes if it gets absorbed into you, that's hard because as we said, some of you are doing it the entire day. By the time the 3 o'clock mediation comes, you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I have any more left in me to give to everybody else. A lot of times we wonder the boundaries, and I find it sometimes very difficult to set my own boundaries when I'm tired. And that's when you remind yourself you're being professional, you're not being cold-hearted. Those boundaries are so important, and I put a mental wall around me to say this is me and this is everyone else. I'm not going to take on their emotions. I'm an independent party. I can't carry it as if it's my stuff. I have a lot of stuff going on in my life that I need to deal with. We need to remember that if we don't do that, if we keep taking the emotions, how many emotions are you going to take back with you? Because you're being professional, absolutely. You're not being cold-hearted. And really, what the biggest thing is, if you start taking those emotions with you, it's not just the two parties that are there in the mediation. Sometimes it's also the support person. Sometimes it's legality. Sometimes it's something else. And if we don't pause and we don't start remembering that it's not my circus, not my monkeys is one of my good phrases, then that phrase brings a smile to my face. Don't ask me why, but I just used to love circuses and I still do. And just saying that's someone else's circus, I'm actually watching very attentively to bring some calm, but it is not my circus. And if we start doing that on a regular basis, it's going to become a habit. We need to start looking at some micro techniques to stay centered because, as we said, we get tired. We can get emotional. A lot can be going on. Something that someone says in the room can hit a chord with you, and a really personal chord. Sometimes you need to just bring that calm in. I was sitting down with a client yesterday and we were having a conversation, and she brought up something that hit a chord with me. It was about family. It was about how her neighbor had said something which reminded her about her sister. And without getting into the nitty-gritties, we all have some issue or the other that is going on in our life. It may be with a family member, it may be with a neighbor, it may be with a friend. But when she was telling me this story, that really hit a chord on me. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm facing this as well. It was then taking a point to say, I'm going to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out, because in this session, we are not talking about me or my sister. We are talking about the client. Separate. Sometimes in that meeting, you feel we are meant to be non-judgmental, but we are human beings. Judgment does come to our mind. That's an automatic thought that comes into our mind. And you can't really stop that automatic thought from coming. If someone is saying something harsh, you want to say, hey, if you actually calm down and listen, it might be better. Obviously, can't say that aloud. But again, you can remind yourself with some neutral self-talk. You can start saying to yourself at that time, this isn't about me. They are having a bad day. This is about them. Let them be. This is not who they are as people. This is the emotion that is coming out in this situation. You can pick what your self-talk can be, but you need to right now, in that moment, just remind yourself it's not about you. Sometimes what I do is a posture reset. I find this really, really powerful. It's something that I have worked on with a lot of practice, and maybe we can do this as a 2-second exercise, which obviously is going to sound very simplistic right now, but I'm going to ask you to practice about it when you have your time and see how it helps, or it might not help, and that's okay too. But that's one extra tool you might have in your toolbox. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a moment, or keep it open, there's no pressure, and think about a time when things were tough. You're having a shitty day. Nothing's worked out. You feel like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? Open your eyes if you've closed them. What are you feeling? Crap? Down? Absolutely. Now, close your eyes again. Now think about something positive. You've had the best news, and that best news could be professional or personal. For me, oftentimes at this point, I remember my little puppy coming to me and giving me a cuddle. Hold on to that feeling and then open your eyes. How are you feeling now? I'm not going to say you change automatically, but it lifts your spirit for that moment. It's just that posture change. And I've learned to do it with my posture. So my left-hand side is usually where I'm feeling a little bit. And then you'll see me shift to the right. And that's me remembering my small little dog giving me a nice cuddle. Hang on to that one emotion, because when you're in the middle of a session, you can't sit and think about what's a positive thought. But if that becomes your normal positive thought, all you're thinking at that time is, for me, it's Ruby, which is the name of my baby. So if you've already got that in your toolbox, it's going to be easier for you to do that posture reset and then move to the right and you're feeling back to neutral. And the big thing in the mediation, we have a lot of times when we have to tell people things which are not very nice. Sometimes you have to tell them to stop and let the other person talk. And when you say it the 10th time, you don't feel nice about it. But that's where you need to name it, but don't claim it. Oh, I love that, Joe. I would find a smile as well if I'm thinking of my children and grandchildren making me smile. And oftentimes, if we start making that our norm, that helps us a lot. But remember also, you're naming those behaviors, but you're not making them your own. Post-mediation. So now during the mediation, we've done a lot of things, but what happens when you walk out of the session? You can't turn off the switch. You really don't have it. Mediation off. Now I'm back into the normal. You just can't do it, especially because your emotions are really high. You've gone into so much of this thinking, being there, power imbalance between parties, not showing your emotions. You're completely strung up. You can't just go back into the normal world and go, hey, how are you going, Joe? How was your lunch? You need to have a ritual. And I love this concept of having rituals for getting started in the day, for finishing up your day, for finishing one meeting to the other, especially when you're going from one mediation session to the other. How are you really going to have that reset before you go into the other session? Now, a couple of things that happen, and this is what I do, is I put some thoughts and reflections into it. The first thing I do is I definitely keep 15 minutes between two mediations, because you need the time to recap in your head. You're a human being. You need to know that you're productive. You know that you need to know what you've done, what you haven't done. Sometimes it's updating those case notes quickly, etc. And if you need to keep half an hour between mediations, do so. Because it's about you, and it's about you going to be productive through this whole process. So what works for me, this is how I think very logically, and anybody who knows me knows by now that I have to have logic behind everything I do. So what's the biggest thing that you're doing as a mediator? You're trying to get everything out in the open as much as you can. So my first question is, did I do everything I could have done? Did I get everyone the opportunity to talk? Did I give everyone equal airtime? Did I listen to everybody? And then did I come up with the proper agenda? And then did I get the outcome that everyone is comfortable with? And this may be session one where all the outcomes are not there. And that's why, did I do enough for this particular meeting session? Was it fair for everyone? Did one person take over the whole center stage or try to? And if they did try to, was I able to just pause them? Was I able to give everyone center stage the equal amount of time? And the last thing that I like to ask myself is, will this stick in this moment? Whatever we have discussed, and the reality is one session isn't enough. Sometimes 10 sessions are not enough. But at least what I can say is everything that we talk, will it stick for the moment? Because tomorrow is another day. And then what you've done is you've moved from your mind being full to being mindful. You're coming back into the now and the here. Because yes, I've done everything that I could do. Sometimes if I'm not 100% sure, I put a summary together. And that summary might just stay in my inbox, or it might go out to both the client and the employer and the employee so that there is a summary over there. These were the things we talked about. If I have missed anything, please get back to me. But what then has happened is I've just thrown everything out, and then nothing's sitting over there, and I'm not sitting and thinking, oh my God, is everyone on the same page? Because if they're not, they're going to email me back and tell me. And trust me, people are very good at emailing back and telling you what you have missed. And it's an important part as well. My go-to is putting on some mindless TV. And trust me, after a mediation session, I have no idea what TV I put on. I just put that TV on and I just go into, that's a signal for me. That's done. I now need to clear my brain, and I now need to come back to the ground level so that I can come back to my family or to my next job or to my whatever it is that is happening next. And I think sometimes if you have this obvious ritual, and it takes practice, it doesn't happen automatically, you will only be running from one thing to the other. And that's where you're not going to know how to stop and start. You're just on the go, and you just do not know how to stop yourself. All this is going to do is help you hit the pause button between either two sessions or at the end of the day. I'm going to ask you, and please put in the chat screen, you saw I'm a good nag and I do start taking names if nobody does that. What helps you switch off? What is one thing that you do post-mediation? Or if you're not doing it right now, What can be one of your post-mediation rituals? I love that, Usha. Have a favorite meal. Especially when it's a difficult mediation, you have to do something more special for yourself. Because depending on where you're mediating, it can be quite difficult, especially in family mediation. It really tears your heart out sometimes. And treating yourself to something that you really like, that's fantastic. Oh, I love gardening. That fresh air, just doing something which is brainless, not having to concentrate is so amazing. I love walks as well. They clear your head as well as, but my walks are more so, I think, when I'm trying to solve a problem and can't find an answer. Love my walk at that time. How about the others? Is there anything that you can think about as a ritual that you can do that calms you? Have siblings, have kids? Do they annoy the crap out of you sometimes? What do you do to calm yourself at that time? That could be a good go-to to calm yourself even when you've done a mediation.
I haven't used it for a while, but in the past I installed an imaginary force field on my door so I could let all of the connections from the mediation get zapped off as I walked out.
It is amazing. All of those things are so good because it just helps you. Yeah. Yep. And I think that's where we need to remember all of these things are about helping us so we don't burn out. Because if we do burn out, imagine what's going to happen of our industry. We do a very important job and we can't underestimate the power of what we do. So what does burnout look like in mediators? I've put a few things and it's about feeling overwhelmed. Have you ever felt like I just don't have the energy to go into this mediation, but I need to? I know it's going to be difficult. I know it's going to be really hard. If that happens once in a while, that's okay. But if it happens very often, I think you need to start thinking about what's happening. What's very often, again, is a very, very subjective thing. Very often for somebody could be once a week. Very often for somebody else could be once a day. There is no one size fits all over here. If you're getting a, do I really want to do this again for a really difficult, complex mediation, you need to start asking yourself, is this the first sign of burnout or is it genuinely difficult? And we will come to that part as well. But right now, we're just trying to look at some things. Absolutely, hindsight spiral. Yes, the things just lingering and lingering in your head can really cause yourself to go into, oh my God, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. And you know what? Hindsight's a really good thing, but you did the best at that time. I love that concept, Usha, to delete all the documentation related to that so that you can get that energy out and you can get that energy back into your next mediation. Amazing idea. If you're starting to, though, get into that hindsight spiral, again, hit a pause button. Think about what's going on. Think about how it's affecting you and how it's affecting everybody else, because you're going to start seeing those signs in your everyday life. You're going to start, if you're seeing signs of losing time with your family because you're overworking, you suddenly find, oh my God, I need to do this 1 hour extra outside working hours because if I don't do it, I'll fall behind. If you're starting to get into that regularity, and again, it's not a one size fits all. And I'm going to say this, my husband works once a week, at least after hours, but that's been a pattern for him from the get-go. So that's not a sign of burnout. But if you're doing it when that's not you, that's when you need to start looking at it. Why am I losing time with my family? If I stop going out for a coffee with my family because I'm avoiding it, that's a sign of burnout. You need to start questioning yourself. Or sometimes you find yourself wandering right in the middle of the session. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the whole hour of the session you're just there. No, we're all human beings. You're going to think about, oh, what am I going to cook tonight? Or what did she say? But it is when it happens a lot more than that, and you are not able to concentrate on the moment. You need to start looking at that. What I'm trying to say over here is I'm not telling you to track the time. I'm trying to tell you to track your energy. Track how you're feeling before you go into the mediation. Track how you're feeling after the mediation. Track how you're feeling at the end of the day. Track how you're feeling at the end of the week. Those are all signs that are going to tell you what's happening. And I love the idea of tracking your emotions at the end of the week, because then you can see, was I feeling like that last week? Because that gives you some signs. If week by week your energy is deteriorating, there's your sign that something's going wrong, something's not working. And if you do track it actively, you're going to be able to stop yourself before you get into burnout. So what do we do if that happens? Some of the things that I think of are micro and some are macro. We need to have some micro recovery. So some of the micro is in the moment. 1 minute strategies. Sometimes you don't have a long time. And we've talked about that 1 minute strategy as a walk. I'm just going to go for a walk around the block, or I'm just going to go in the backyard, take 5 deep breaths and come back. Music is another one for me. I put on some music, go do a quick dance, and then come back. What has happened is I've just burnt out energy. It's not that, I'm a good dancer or anything, but the dancing is giving me that energy burst that I need. Sing aloud. Sometimes just singing a song can help. You don't have to be a very good singer. I know my voice is not the best. Humor helps as well. And that's why what I sometimes have is I have some humorous quotes that I keep. I'll just go to that, look at that and go, that brought a smile at my face. And it's a 1 minute strategy that's going to bring you back. Anything 1 minute that helps you is worth it, rather than you going into this cycle every time. Also keeping buffer zones. I like to keep at least a half an hour time gap between two clients. 15 minutes for sometimes you run over, even if you don't want to. I'm a good timekeeper, but still some people talk and you don't want to just shut them out and show them the door. But also 15 minutes is what I feel I need for myself between two sessions. What is your buffer time? That buffer time needs to be for your ritual of closing out, but also to go and grab a glass of water, go for a toilet break, go for just clearing your head before you go anywhere else. How long do you really keep for that during a day? Do you have your pause breaks? A lot of times we as practitioners will tell everybody, oh, you need to have your pause break every time. How many of you actually do a pause break? I know there are days when I don't. So it's not like just because I preach it, I do it every day. But the bottom line is you got to do it at least 90% of the times. There is going to be a day here or a day there when you can't do all of these fantastic things. But as long as you're doing it 90% of the times, you're going to make sure that you're able to be resilient. You'll be able to continue to do your job. But not only that, you're able to do it in a successful manner. Because if we don't do it like that, you're eventually going to start feeling like, I can't handle it. You're going to lose track during that session. You're not going to be able to keep it together. And that's what we are aiming for. Sorry, gone a bit ahead. Some of the other things, have some non-negotiable break times. How many of you put some non-negotiable break times in your calendar? I know a lot of people who do, but then something comes up and fill it up. But that makes it negotiable. It doesn't keep it as a non-negotiable time. You need to keep at least an hour or two in your calendar every single day as a non-negotiable break time. Not because you're a slacker, but because you care for yourself. You need to make sure you have that time to do things that you want to do. Sometimes something urgent might come up. And Again, is it really urgent? I question it every time someone tries to make that non-negotiable break time and eat into it. I ask, why? Just in a form of curiosity, because if you're not curious, you're going to give that up very, very quickly. I also like to have a ritual for winding down, and I shared my ritual with you. Before the end of today, we're going to try and have at least one strategy for everyone. I also like to have a gratitude log, have a habit to say a gratitude. How many of you say a gratitude even once a day? And I think a lot of us just take things for granted. We are so busy in our everyday life. We forget to be grateful. But there are so many things that are happening around us that can help us with that. Even if you don't share, I'd love if somebody shares. But let's all think of one thing we are grateful for right now. I'm grateful that I have this opportunity to have a chat with all of you. It's such a pleasure, and it actually fulfills me. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think about what is it that you are grateful for. You're welcome to share. This one you don't have to share. The other thing that I was talking about in the previous screen, if you start seeing those times when you're not sure, am I not wanting to go into this mediation session because it's really difficult? Or am I starting to burn out? Get into some peer supervision. Ask a colleague, ask someone you can trust, but ask someone who's empathetic but also real. Absolutely, Usha, when Pat is sincerely thankful. That is such a thing to be grateful for, because how many times do you actually get a thank you, and a genuine one? Not too many. People take our professionalism for granted. People take our job for granted. So yes, when you get a sincere thank you, I'm very grateful for that. How many of you actually schedule time for peer mentoring or professional supervision? I know we all tick that box. I know we all do it the number of hours that we absolutely have to. But how many of us do it genuinely when we see ourselves burning out? How many of us pick up that, is this the flag that I should be looking for? Another good idea for building up your resilience, and something that you can go to, is what I did well folder. Not everything's about feedback. Thanks, Joe. Love that. So next group supervision, we're all going to be there.
Yeah, it's all free for members, so come on.
And what did you do well? We all do things well. Do you recognize yourself? We keep harping on, and I do harp on about people take us for granted. But don't we take ourselves for granted? What is one thing you do well? All right, let me pose this out to you all. What is one thing you did well today? We all must have done at least one thing, if not more, that we really did well today. I can tell you I managed my time really well today. I had back-to-back meetings, but I did not run late for any session. What did someone else do well today?
I got a call from an agitated person who'd been put down as a supervisor for her brother in a mediation, and she thought we were the mediator, so I calmed her down really well. She didn't have the information
Nice.
she needed to be able to support her, but I gave her where she needs to go once she got the information. So yeah, it was good. It was a good call.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone has done something like that today and every day. But how many times do we actually remember that? We usually remember this client, this happened, this is happening. Oh, and everything is like, we only remember things that go pear-shaped. In my family, we have a dinner time conversation where we debrief our day. And early on, it used to be all the oh my gods. But now we first have a gratitude. What am I grateful for? And then it is about what went well, because that's the important part. And then we can, yes, talk about what we need to work on or what didn't go well and brainstorm some ideas within reason. But again, make that a habit, make that a norm. It's okay to be happy about something you've done. It's actually good to be humble about it, but to acknowledge it at the same time. And the last one, join a network. You've got your free group supervision. Let's all start taking advantage of that. And I mean that in a nice manner, because it helps. Otherwise, we feel isolated. And that isolation can also make it really hard for us. How many of us have a good peer connection that can prevent us from becoming isolated? Who is your go-to to talk to? Who do you go and talk to when you are having a problem in your mediation sessions? Who's the first person that comes to your mind? Write it down for yourself so that you remember. Which of you is part of a peer group and a check-in thread? Who checks in on you if you haven't reached out to them? Is it a friend? Is it a partner? Is it a work colleague? Who is that one person who you can rely on at any time? Because isolation is just not sustainable. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help us. It's not going to help anybody. So if you don't have this peer connection, let's start talking about how are we going to do that? What can you do to create that peer connection? Who is that one person who you can go to if you don't have one already? Brainstorm that and write it down, because that's something is going to help you. That doesn't always have to be your partner. That doesn't always have to be a friend. That doesn't always have to be a colleague or a mother or a father or a sibling. It can be someone completely neutral. It could be a supervisor. But we need to have something. The other thing sometimes I tell people is most places even have an EIP. How many of you have used an EIP? I used to be very shy of doing that because I used to think, is that a sign of weakness? I have learned it's actually a sign of strength. Going and asking for help is very helpful. So let's actually write down, what is your one ritual that you are going to start today? And I'm actually going to make this challenge as a non-negotiable. Let's write down a ritual first that you are going to have for yourself to shut down after a meeting. And I'm going to start in the group chat myself so that we all do that as soon as I find my mouse and the right place to type it out. So just one thing that's going to do that closure for you. It can take only a minute. It can take only 30 seconds. What's your ritual, everyone? Fake it till you make it. Come up with something right now. Can you go for a walk? Can you take a toilet break? Can you go grab a glass of water? What is that one ritual you're going to do to close off one meeting before you go into another? I'm hoping everyone's written it down for themselves. If they're not writing in the chat screen, that's okay. Fantastic. That's a great idea. Makes you think of something else, so you're not doing it back to back with everything else. What's a red flag that you need to watch out for in yourself? For me, one of the red flags is starting to do a lot more after hour work. And again, I don't watch out for that. I have actually got 2 people who I am accountable to, who I talk to and say, and they actually tell me, Are you working overtime for a reason? Is this temporary? How long is this going to go on for? It is that accountability check. Have an accountability partner. It's amazing how much that can help, because we can't see everything. We as individuals, as human beings, can keep going on and not realize till we are burnt out. But if you have an accountability partner, they show you the mirror and say, hey, Karishma, I have noticed you haven't come for coffee for a long time. Can we go for a coffee? And that's a stark reminder for me that I have been ignoring some things. And what's one boundary that's going to protect you better? One of my boundaries are, even if I have to work after hours, it's not going to be for more than an hour, and it's not going to be more than one night a week. And the reason I set myself that boundary is because there was a time I was working every single night after hours before I realized it. Wasn't good for anybody, because by the end of the week, I was so tired, I couldn't catch up with anybody. And my whole weekend only went catching up on my own energy. So I've made that boundary for myself. What is one boundary that you're going to set for yourself that's going to help you protect yourself better throughout this time? Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup, and you are allowed to protect your energy. You don't have to be giving, and giving all the time. You can look after yourself as well. But also, you need to remember, you're not the conflict. You're actually the calm. You are the one person who is creating that calm in that whole environment. And if you don't manage that calm yourself, that mediation session is going to be messy. That mediation session is actually going to go not well. It's going to bring emotions in people. If people catch up on emotions, people catch up on your emotion. And if you're not going to be calm in that session, the agitated people are going to continue to be getting agitated and get worse. Joe's example of that person who was agitated on the phone, imagine if they are agitated and telling Joe, and sorry, Joe, I'm just going to paraphrase over here and saying, oh my God, Joe, what the hell do you think? And Joe goes, oh my God, don't talk to me like that. That tone is just going to catch up and it's going to escalate. Knowing Joe, she probably calmly said, can I help you? What's going on? Let me understand where you're coming from. And that's going to calm them. But if you don't calm yourself, there is not going to be any calm around you. I will definitely send out some paperwork, but now open to you all. Ask me questions, ask me anything. Any comments, any questions?
Wonderful. Thank you, Karishma. That's given me some food for thought as well. Not so much in my mediations, but I'm way over capacity in my other work. So thank you. Obviously needed to be here tonight. Look, what I might do is I might just stop record and then, people just come and please feel to share where we'll be in the confidentiality zone then.
Thank you.